Okay, mate, I'm pleased to say that.
Welcome, everyone. You join us at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, or Interlagos, as it's affectionately known. It's practice time, it's Brazil, and it's great to have you with us.
Okay, give us some good, consistent laps, please. We're looking for good data that we can work into a race strategy. Programme complete and a job well done. We got some excellent data with that run, so come on back to the garage and I can take you through the numbers. Pitting this lap then. Come into the pits at the end of this lap.
Sadly, it... It's a Saturday showdown. Anyone fancy some hot laps around Interlagos? It's qualifying day here for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Well, the weather is not looking good today. We're expecting the downpours to continue into today's sprint, and this will make for some very tricky conditions for all the teams. Interlagos, always a very special race here in Brazil. It's a 2.7-mile circuit with 9 left turns and 6 right turns for a total of 15 corners. It's a wet one today as well, so grip and visibility will be at a premium, and the drivers will need to be careful coming up the hill in Sector 3, the scene of many an accident over the years. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. Ace lines up on pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Fernando Alonso, Russell, Norris, Gasly, Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Perez, Sainz, Hamilton, Ocon, Albon, Stroll, Ricciardo, Tsunoda, Hülkenberg, Magnussen, Bottas and Logan Sargent. And with preparations almost complete, let's head trackside for today's sprint. And alongside me today, a man small in stature but big on comment, Anthony Davidson. Hello. Well, they say that a change is as good as a rest, and whilst there's not much rest on show in the sprint format today, there's definitely a change to what we're usually seeing on the track. Let's look at their season, and particularly against their teammate. Fair to say they've got the better of them more often than not.
Yeah, they have, and it's, rule number 1, beat your teammate. They're the one that share the same equipment as you, and yes, the cars can vary and set up from race to race and depending on who has which style, but essentially they're your barometer, the yardstick. If you can beat them, that's the first job you have to do. And it looks like it's going their way, doesn't it? And they need to carry on this momentum, this energy through the rest of the season.
No tyre concerns at the moment, just focus on the driving. It looks like we're running on a dry track soon. Back to dry shortly. You might experience some understeer now that you're in the wake of the car ahead. Try to get past as soon as possible. Great work, that's a new fastest lap of the race. Good job, that was the fastest lap of the race so far. Okay, you've just started the final lap of the race. Final lap. Okay, so we're leading our teammate by 19.3 seconds. DRS has been enabled. DRS is now enabled. Yes, yes, come on, we're on the podium. Good job this weekend. That's a great drive. Thank you.
So that wraps up the sprint race, but there's still more action yet to come this weekend. We've got qualifying and, of course, the... It's a Saturday showdown. Anyone fancy some hot laps around Interlagos? It's qualifying day here for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Welcome along then to where heroes and history are made. It's where the 2008 title was decided in the very final corner. And just 1 year later, Jenson Button stormed through from 14th on the grid to claim his one and only Drivers' Championship. It's time then for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Interlagos, always a very special race here in Brazil. It's a 2.7-mile circuit with 9 lefts and 6 rights for a total of 15 corners. The fastest lap today should have an average speed of around 135 miles per hour, if, of course, the weather stays dry until the end of the Grand Prix. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Ace lines up on pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Fernando Alonso, Russell, Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Norris, Perez, Sainz, Hamilton, Stroll, Gasly, Ocon, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Sargent, Bottas, Albon, and Nico Hülkenberg rounds off the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. And alongside me today is a man who needs no introduction, but I'll try anyway. It's Ant Davidson. Let's look at their season, and particularly against their teammate. Fair to say they've got the better of them more often than not.
Yeah, they have, and it's, rule number one, beat your teammate. They're the one that share the same equipment as you. And yes, the cars can vary in setup from race to race and depending on who has which style, but essentially they're your barometer, the yardstick. If you can beat them, that's the first job you have to do. And it looks like it's going their way, doesn't it? And they need to carry on this momentum, this energy through the rest of the season.
DRS is being enabled this lap. We can use DRS when you're within 1 second of the car ahead and in the DRS zone. That was the fastest lap of the race. Keep this up. Well done. Radar suggests some weather's going to hit in around 5 minutes' time, so stay on your toes. Okay, be careful. We think you're going to start losing some tyre grip anytime now. We're approaching the pit window and you're going to be on mediums. Okay, mate, tyres are running hot, mate, tyres are running hot. Please keep the temps down if you can. Nice move, good job. Okay mate, that still wasn't quite what we needed, I'm afraid, but look, let's move on. Get your head down and chin up and focus till the end of the race. Watch out for understeer in the wake of the car ahead. Try to get past as quickly as you can. Push, push. Okay, we want you to pit this lap, so push now, push. Remember, box this lap. Keep an eye on your distance to the speed limit line as you approach and make sure you don't speed. Okay, stay clear of the white line on the exit. We'll receive a penalty for dangerous driving if you cross onto the track. Valtteri is in for his stop. Okay, mate, that's it. Go, go, go. Perfect job on the turn in there, mate. Looks like a nice stop time. We're happy with that one. Okay, the stewards have now disabled DRS. DRS is now disabled. Okay, we're monitoring some wear on the internal combustion engine. Be aware that we're going to start to see a loss of power. Okay, good work. Great pass. Gap to your teammate behind, 25.6 seconds. Okay, mate, lap times are a little erratic at the moment. Let's try and close up the difference between them. And we're still happy that we're on the right tyres at the moment. You're in first position, front of the pack. Verstappen behind you now. They're on a fresh set of inters. That was our last stop. No more scheduled pit stops. Let's go. Okay, just 5 laps until the end. Tyre condition still looking good. Nice work, you smashed it. Really good job on hitting that target, mate. So you know, we're getting some strange readings from a couple of the sensors, so I don't think you need to be worried, just some bad data, so keep doing what you're doing. I'll let you know if we notice any genuine problems. Forecasts suggest the rain's going to be lightening up over the next 10 to 15 minutes or so. You should start finding more grip as we clear the standing water. Okay, mate, this is the final lap of the race. Final lap. Okay, so we're leading our teammate by 37.0 seconds. They're on a fresh set of inters. Time last lap, 1:25.2.
Nice one. Very lovely drive. On to the next one.
Oh, superb driving. That is the race win, my friend. Well done.
Another superb Sao Paulo Grand Prix comes to an end then, and it's a thoroughly deserved victory.
They led from lights out to the flag at the end, and their race victory was never in doubt, was it? Brilliant stuff by them.
Sauber have been winning fans the world over with their brilliant driving and showing that they're a force to be reckoned with out there on the track. They'll certainly be building on that fan base after today's excellent results. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport action. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us.
Okay, mate, I'm afraid we didn't quite get what we needed there, but let's not worry about it. Get your head down now, chin up, and let's focus right until the checkered flag.